Hi, I'm Morel. I am a digital media teacher at Orange County School of the Arts, and today I'm going to be talking to you about critique. So, in your career as an artist, you'll hear the term critique thrown around a lot. You'll be giving critique and receiving critique, but what does that actually mean for you as an artist? Well, critique is feedback given on a piece of work for a couple of reasons. One could be to look at a piece of professional work in order to better understand the artist's intention behind that work. Another use of critique is for assessment to help artists like your classmates and yourself improve upon your work. This is the version of critique we'll be focusing on right now. But why do we do it? Well, a lot of times you'll get to a point in your work where you can't really tell what's not working and what's successful. So, those are the times when it's important to bring in another artist who has an outside perspective to see things that you probably can't. This is essential for your personal growth. You could think of it like pruning a plant and getting rid of parts that are unnecessary that wouldn't stop the plant from growing, but hinder how fast it can grow. Now, you may be wondering, what types of critiques can we expect to do at OSHA? Well, here are some types that you'll see in class. One is the verbal response. This is where the teacher will project an image up on the screen, and the entire class will be invited to do a verbal critique of that piece. Another form you'll see is the written response. This is where, again, the teacher will project a piece of artwork up on the screen, and the entire class will write their personal critiques and submit those. And then you will see the presentation and structured response, where the artist of that piece will actually get up in front of the class and present it, and then the class will be invited to critique that piece, whether that is verbally or in a written response. When it comes to talking about art, it's not really as simple as just giving your opinion. Art really doesn't work on a good or bad scale. You can talk about skill levels and you can talk about if the artist is successful in their goals, but just saying a piece is good or bad really isn't a useful piece of critique. Before you give a piece of critique, you want to consider a couple of things. First, think about the artist's intention. Whether you like a piece or not, what was the artist trying to do with it? And then were they successful with that? Another thing you want to consider is your personal bias. If you don't like the color yellow, that doesn't really mean that a piece is bad if it uses that color. Instead, you want to think, okay, I don't like that color. This piece isn't really for me, but why did the artist use that and were they successful in doing so? And another thing you might want to do before giving critique is take a step back and think, if someone was giving me this piece of critique, would it be helpful to me? If your answer is no, you might want to reconsider how you're phrasing your critique. So now it's time to give your critique. I think a lot of people get hung up here because they're afraid that they're going to hurt the feelings of their classmates and friends by giving them some critique on their art. Let's look at how we can approach that without causing any emotional harm. One great way is the compliment sandwich. You might have heard this term thrown around before. Typically, it's said that you should give a compliment, and then your critique, and then finish with a compliment again. I've modified that a little bit in a way that I think is more helpful. So when you're critiquing art, again, start with a compliment. Then you want to address the weak point of the art. Then you want to give a suggested solution on how that weak point can be fixed. And then you want to end with encouragement. This is just a minor tweak, and even though you might know that you're getting this compliment sandwich, it still helps you in that it gives you guidance on what is your strong point in your art, what needs a little more attention, and how you might go about changing that. Now, the compliment sandwich can still be a little harmful if you don't understand the difference between constructive criticism and destructive criticism. Let's take a look at examples of what this is. Here's an example of a compliment sandwich that is actually destructive criticism. Let's take this lemonade stand. A patron comes up and says, "You're doing a great thing. Your lemonade tastes like garbage, but keep up the good work." This is destructive criticism. The lemonade maker is left confused on what they're doing right, what they need to improve upon, and are getting mixed messages. The patron used an unnecessarily negative term when they called the lemonade garbage, and they didn't offer a solution on how the lemonade might be improved. They also used the term but, which is not inherently bad, but if it's not used carefully, it can actually negate any positives that you've just said. Overall, this critique is too vague to be really helpful to the lemonade maker. Now let's look at a compliment sandwich that is constructive criticism. At the same lemonade stand, another patron comes up and says, "Charity is such a worthy cause. The lemonade is a bit too sour. I suggest adding more sugar next time. Keep up the good work." Now the lemonade maker is much more happy with this critique because it gives them more direction. The patron gave a specific positive in that they were doing this for charity. They gave specifics on what needed improvement in that the lemonade was too sour, suggested a solution by adding sugar, and ended with encouragement. This is a really strong piece of critique that's helpful to everyone involved and avoids hurting feelings with unnecessarily negative terms. Let's look at the other end of the spectrum. What do we do when we're the one receiving critique? Well, it's really easy to get your feelings hurt if you let yourself, so do your best to not be defensive. Remember that when we give critique, it's only to try to help you and not to hurt you. If you feel like maybe someone is giving a critique that misunderstands what you were trying to convey with your art, go ahead and listen to the full critique and then calmly explain what your intention was and ask how you can make your intention with your piece more clear, because obviously something wasn't quite coming across. Also, keep in mind you don't have to use every piece of critique you are given. While you should consider everything, sometimes you'll get critique that isn't really in line with what your intention is with your art. It's okay to not use it, but you're probably better off not telling the critic either way whether you're going to use it or not. Just make sure you always thank the critic for their advice because they are trying to help you and it's just a nice thing to do. So that's all I have to say about critique for now. I hope you found this helpful and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.